And we are now recording. So welcome everybody to the 2019 Design Studio of the Gaia Education Design for Sustainability course. So wonderful to see you all and to have so many people on this first session, which is a critical time during the course to get oriented and have a little preview of what is expected as a final product at the end of the course. I want to preview by saying also that this year we extended the course a bit. Normally it runs 8 weeks like the other dimensions, but we found in the past that people invariably needed more time. So we extended the course to 12 weeks. However, I have to say one of those 12 weeks is already run through as we were sorting out the proposals being sent in. And you were picking which ones you would like to work with. I posted a couple of hours ago the list that we came up with after you made your choices for first, second, and third preference of which proposal to work with. Now, we tried to give everybody their first choice, and when that was not possible, we tried to give second choice in order to have a good distribution of students across the 7 projects that were sent. There are 4 or 3. 3 we think is the minimum number of people working on a team, and 4 is ideal because you can then divide that up into the 4 dimensions or any other way that you want to organize your work. So that's where we are right now. If you had a chance to see that, that's great. If not, you can go to the general forum in the classroom, and you'll see there how the teams have, for now, been broken up. So that's what I have to say until now. I would like to turn it over to Ezio, who has prepared this wonderful introduction and orientation to how to proceed with the course. So Ezio, over to you.
Thank you, Gio, and again, welcome to all the students. It's really exciting to see all of you having finished your 4 dimensions, and that's all the theory. And now you start applying that theory and your knowledge into a real-life case study. So it's not an easy task to undertake, especially if no one has been involved in project management type work. But here's your opportunity. So let's see how we go, and we're here to support you all the way. So we've got the 4 dimensions, and what we're basically going to be doing is seeing how can we integrate all 4 dimensions within the case study and see how far down the project cycle we can actually take this. So just as the overview, there are 2 requirements required from students in this dimension. The first one is a relatively easy one, and this is the immersion report. This is an individual effort where students basically go and visit an eco-village type project or sustainable community, or they go and visit a transition town initiative, and they basically do a sustainability audit. It's only a 3 to 5 page report. It's really a very high level insight as to what can you see that's being done properly on this project in accordance with the 4 dimensions. And the tip there that we strongly suggest is look at section 2.2 and look at the probing questions. Just deal with those questions, and you'll find that your sustainability audit will explain itself. For those students who are struggling to identify a suitable project that they could go and visit, just get in touch with me and we can discuss it. I know Andre had a problem like that because he's in the process of moving from Switzerland back to South Africa. But I can put you onto several initiatives in South Africa that you can go and visit. And likewise, other students, I can give you quite a few bit of guidance there. So the bulk of the work is actually item 2 there, which is the case study design. So look at parts 3 and 4 of the guidebook, and the tips there are what we're going to unpack in the following slides. So number 1, look at previous year's case studies. there's a wealth of information that comes through here, and some of these case studies, they just seem to get better and better every year. It's really exciting to see how the students meet each other for the first time, and they put together these amazing documents in literally 10 to 12 weeks. So do have a look at them, and I can even guide you to the ones that are more appropriate for your type of project. But we can discuss this later on as we get stuck into the projects. Then the one other very important overarching theme that we need to think about is design team collaboration. Unfortunately, in the real world, you often get the silo mentality, as you see here in the top left-hand corner, where you've got a project manager who cracks the whip over the designers, and in order to meet time, cost, and quality, and it doesn't really bring out the creative juices in the whole team, unless you've got a really good hands-on project manager that's very holistic thinking. But that's not usually the case. What we're trying to inculcate is to have an integrated and collaborative approach, and that's where you see the circle where everyone participates. Another interesting picture or image that I saw recently on the net, I've put there on the right-hand side. There you see typical specialists, which is what you see as engineers, architects, investors, or whatever. And look who's in the middle there, the king, the client or the project manager who calls the shots. Meanwhile, what we should be doing is collaborating a hell of a lot more. And when we start collaborating in this fashion, we start realizing that not everyone is up to it. And this is where we start developing T-shaped skills. So the T-shaped skills are basically, if you can imagine the I and the T, this is an expert at one or two things. That's like an engineer or an architect, someone who's really specialized and focused in their project designs. Then you've got a generalist, and these generalists are capable of a lot of things, but they're not an expert in any. So that famous quote, jack of all trades, master of none, that's a generalist. And then you've got a T-shaped skills person. So if you've got T-shaped skills, you're highly, highly sought after. So here you're an expert in at least one field, but you're also a generalist able to coordinate the input of other specialists. So imagine having a project team where you've just got 4 R-shaped specialists. How are they going to collaborate? If you've got 4 generalists, well, nothing gets done because there's no specialist input. But if you've got at least one T-shaped skills person in the team, you'll find that the team will pull through because there's someone who's coordinating it across the width of the specialist, and then you've got your specialists who dig deep in terms of depth of field. So something very important to bear in mind, reflect upon the team members and see when you meet each other for the first time in your kickoff meeting, who's got R-shaped skills at specific things, who's a generalist, and who thinks they are T-shaped skills. It's very important audits to do right up front. So this is how the case study unfolds. In previous years, we've always had a slow start amongst the project teams. I think it's because, one, it's overwhelming, there's a lot of information, but we've clarified the guidebook and we've unpacked it on how you should approach it. And the approach is really within this table. So you've got your 4 dimensions and your 5 modules in each one. I call this the patchwork quilt, as you see in the top right-hand corner. So in your guidebook, you've got some probing questions per each dimension. It's in section 3.5. And you need to look at these from 3.5 to 3.8. So have a look at it in detail and just start off there. And don't beat about the bush and think how you're going to do it and this and that. I really suggest you get stuck in, answer those questions. And what you start doing, you start drafting a response for each of those modules according to those probing questions. Eventually, what you start doing, you start putting together almost like a blanket, and you start quilting it. So it's got all these little patches of research that are done by the specialist, and then you need to integrate these as well. So here's a typical specialist input. Remember, the light blue is your eye-shaped skills, the specialist. You'll find a specialist who put together modules 1 through to 5 of an ecological dimension, or maybe an economic dimension. You might decide to rearrange this according to your skill set. But this is a good specialist input, the ecological side. And then one needs to also consolidate that within the dimension. That's what we call dimensional integration. And then someone needs to weave this whole story through across all 4 dimensions. So this is what we call interdimensional integration. As you start doing this, you start providing the framework, what we call the strategic framework for the overall project. And inevitably, you'll find that the ecological dimension produces ecological outputs. So these are specific outcomes designed to achieve the overarching objectives. You'll find the economic dimension delivers the overarching objectives in terms of socioeconomic cross-cutting objectives, which support the mission, values, and also informs the ecological outcomes. On the social side, you'll find that the work that as you work through these modules, you'll start refining the mission and values of the overall case study. Meanwhile, the worldview, that one really pins down, or ought to pin down, the statement. And this is how you integrate the 4 dimensions, but this also gives you a very nice framework for your strategy for the project, which is a high-level output, which should be included in the summary again. Let's look how a project, this is applied to a real-life project. So here is, sorry, we're going to look at the ecological dimension first. So imagine unpacking the ecological dimension. You've got all the modules, you've got your base mapping, your water supply, your permaculture layout, your carbon neutral energy design, and your green building design. These are specialist input activities. You then need to consolidate this ecological design. So that's dimensional integration. And then you start weaving the story with the other dimensions. Let's look now at an example of what this looks like. So this is from a couple of years ago, the Schloss Glarische Eco Village in Switzerland. They did a case study back in about 2012, and I think the basis of this case study, they've pretty much implemented. If you look at this Eco Village at the moment, they're running EDEs. I think they're also running permaculture courses. It's quite a thriving community. And they didn't quite do the strategic framework in their case study report back in those days, but I managed to tease out the relevant information to show you what it would have looked like. So for example, a strategic framework is designed as a high-level pitch to investors, to seek planning approval, to solicit new members, and so forth. So imagine you've got a 5-minute audience with major stakeholders, and you have to make an impact. You can't go and unpack a 65-page case study in front of them. You've got 5 minutes to make your point. And this is a nice strategic framework in which you can do that. So this strategic framework is read from left to right and also from right to left. In other words, it's all integrated and aligned. So for example, let's just say that your ecological outputs start changing a little bit insofar as food security is concerned, where you start coming across these new hybrids and GMO seeds that promise wonderful yields, and some or other, a team member is adamant that this is going to work. Sure, it's going to work, it might work, but isn't it in conflict with the overall vision and mission and values? So this is where the values of a project and the vision could be used to cross-check whether the outputs actually are all aligned. So this is why we read this both left and right to left. So when you have a look at previous case studies, look out for those case studies who managed to put this type of strategic framework right up front in the executive summary. How far do we expect you to take this case study? There's a section in the guidebook which shows typical project cycles for infrastructure delivery projects, and then this one for a typical permaculture project. We don't expect the students in this case study to take it further than concept design. That's stage 2 there. So stage 1 is really the site analysis, identifying what's there, and from there you produce a base plan. And then the creative juices start flowing in the concept design. We're going to unpack this process in the second live session. But just for now, just to placate you, we're not expecting a whistles and bells type case study. If you take it as far as concept design, we'd be more than happy. Those projects like Terra Alta, where they've already got a concept design laid out, they could well move into stage 3, where they could refine certain elements or all of it within this case study. It just depends how far you want to take the case study. For those projects that are advocacy-based, like the Gaia Education Live Community, which Andre proposed, that one will have a totally different process, because this is based on a permaculture type project with kind of tangible outputs. So in Andre's case, we're also looking to see taking their project as far as a concept stage, maybe some aspects of detailed design. But we can cross that bridge when we get there. At least this gives you an idea of how far we expect you to take your case study. This is the suggested work plan and the design integration process. So we've already introduced the R-shaped, the generalist, and the T-shaped thinking. Now, it would be wonderful if everyone in the team has a chance to actually practice the T-shaped skills. So in other words, they provide a specialist input for particular modules. They then perform the job of a generalist to try and integrate within that dimension those respective modules. And then perhaps they offer their skills, their T-shaped skills, to try and integrate everything across 4 dimensions. How does this thing unfold? So there's the first process. And you can see the timeline. Gio, just a correction that the first week has already started. The first week only starts on Monday. We're giving the students the benefit of the doubt this week to complete the assignment to the various case studies amongst team members, and then also for the proponent of the case study to call the team members together for the first team meeting, or the first what we call the kickoff meeting. And as soon as you've done that, you can get underway with undertaking the questions in module 1 that are included in your manual from sections 3.5 to 3.8. So work your way across your schedule. This is just our suggested work plan. You may decide that you want to start with a worldview or social view and delay the other 2, but this is just our suggestion. We find that the ecological normally takes quite a lot of effort to gather all the background information, also the economic side, because it's got the bioregion and the social. And the worldview and the social, those really start picking up as you've got something more defined coming out of your economic and ecological. So here again, just focus on getting the information out in a draft form. Doesn't have to be neat and tidy. Just do the research on each of those modules as per the prompts in the guide. Towards the end of that, you'll need to start integrating within the dimensions. This is the generalist that comes in and integrates within the dimension. And then you start the interdimensional integration. So there's a lot of work to tie up and integrate all the work coming out of the modules and each dimension. And then that allows you about 2 weeks to compile the overall report and to do the final edits. So you can imagine in previous years when we tried to do this in 8 weeks, it was really a big push and used to stress out students. So we've actually extended it into what we feel is a very realistic time frame, but you really got to get cracking in week 1. Do the basic research, get to the stage where you've got enough information to sit back, look at that patchwork quilt and say, this is how this thing is stitched together. This element stands out, that stands out, this is overarching, and so forth. That work will only become apparent as you slog it through from module 1 to module 5. Then you do the initial integration and then the interdimensional. Don't underestimate the work required to compile the document. So those of you who are Microsoft or PowerPoint proficient, do take the lead in that aspect so you can help the team along. So this is how the team allocation came out. So we based it on, as Gia was saying, those teams that were already nominated within the case study proposal, we honored those. We then looked at the choices that were made. And then finally, when we had to do a bit of juggling, and we thought, how best could we balance the teams? So I hope that all the students are happy with this allocation of teams. But should you have an issue with it and you're not happy, then first try and discuss it with your relevant team. Approach the case study proponent, and then forward us reasons why you don't want to be in that team, and what is your next best choice. So you'll find that we've tried to generally stick to within 3 to 4 team members. And so, for example, the Yelema project, those members were already kind of identified in the initial proposal by Adelaide. And then also the Berksea camp. This team pretty much nominated themselves. Then we've got the team proponents, so they anchor tenants in their own team. And then we looked at allocation of where we couldn't allocate, we just applied our minds. So we thought also Pelangi Farm, there's a strong anchor tenant there in Daria, and we felt that she could probably do with 3 team members instead of 4, and also with Andre's team, which is more worldwide web IT-based project. And then we've got Sipapu and the Children Eco Village project in Zimbabwe that have only got 3 team members as well. So reflect on these, have a look, tell us what you think. If you're happy with it, then let's just leave it. But we are expecting the proponents. So these are the initial team leaders, I would say, to call the first meeting. So by about tomorrow, Gia and Sylvia will start allocating these names in the team spaces on the e-learning website. And each team space has got its own discussion forum, it's got places to upload documents, it's got folders, it's got everything. Okay, and this is the last slide. So this is just a suggested agenda for your kickoff meeting. So the case study proponent will send out an invite, and when you do meet online, you'll introduce each other, maybe even start having an opening circle, and remember what you learned in your social dimension, in your worldview, start honoring everyone's space and time. And then you start moving on to item 2. This is where I suggest that the case study proponent actually provides a deeper briefing into their project. And then item 3, this is very, very important to document. What is the expectation of this case study report by the proponent? Is it in line with what we're suggesting in the guidebook? Does it extend beyond that. So that needs to be clarified amongst the team. And then you start opening up as a team. You start providing your initial proposed contribution. And even though you might have not know the ins and outs of the project at this stage, at least you can share your strengths, your knowledge, your confidence per dimension and per module. And you could probably leave it at that. If you decide to have 2 meetings, you may find that that would be a nice place to break, because you've shared as much as you can. You go back and you reflect, and maybe you regroup and meet again a day or 2 later. And when you do meet, you would come up with a suggestion of how you could assign the team activities per dimension and per module, because you need to share the work amongst the team. You can then confirm the work plan schedule, or you can take the one that we suggested as given. And then also agree your methods of communications, your protocols for your communication and sharing of documents. Whilst we do wish you to, in fact, we do require you to use the e-learning folders that we've set up for you. You may wish to use other forms of communication amongst the team. You can set up Skype groups, WhatsApp groups. And in previous years, we've had WhatsApp groups per case study, and these really work quite well, where at very short notice, the team can communicate, when can we meet, how soon, and so forth, rather than email, which is quite lengthy. And then confirm the appointment of a team leader. Is it the team proponent, or do you want to keep that option open? Then you could discuss your general items and then your next meeting. But once you go through this, at least you assign the work activities to the team, and then you get on with researching. We can give you guidance for what should happen in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th meetings and so forth, but I think we can do that in the next last session. So I think this is as far as we're taking it this time. Just to get you kick-started and up and running as fast as we can, so that you can actually complete this in 12 weeks, and it doesn't feel as if it's too taxing on your time and so forth.
If I may, I'd like to add a couple of things. One of them is that the team leader is only basically playing a role. We're not aware of your leadership capacities. We're not aware of the dynamics of your team, but the team leader should not be the only person pulling everybody forward with the project. You are all leaders, and you can all pull things along. So I want really to make it clear that this leadership is not exactly what we are focusing on. What we're looking for is the final product. And where your assignment is to produce that final product with your team as best you can. So again, don't rely only on the team leader to pull it. It would not be fair, because we don't know if that person really is capable of doing that. And you are all located in different places in the world, so there may be some timing issues as far as getting together with your team leader. The team leader basically is the person who proposed the case study. So they should have information. They should be able to give you more information if you need it. And of course, they should be able to pull the team along if that is needed, but it's not only up to them. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we haven't yet set up the 7 teams. Probably tomorrow or in the next couple of days, you will see the classroom, and you will have access to your team area where you can start interacting with your teammates. In the meantime, you can find each other in the participants list and write to each other from those lists. You can probably see each other's email, I believe, or request it from your team members. Anyway, you will need to be a little creative as to how you organize your team. Until we have all the teams set up and you can go to the classroom and reach only your team members from there. That's all I wanted to say for now. Let me see, there is a question from Ade regarding updates on the process. Do we have to provide progress reports?
I can answer this one. We didn't want to include it in today's live session. We thought we'll put that progress updating in the second live session, because there is a requirement for a team leader or some responsible person in the team, a nominated person, to provide regular reports every fortnight. And we got a particular format of those reports. It's a very simple color-in type format, but we're going to share that in the second live session. So it shouldn't take up too much time to compile that report, because it'll be based on evidence of work that's already been done and uploaded into the various folders.
One more thing, most of you will still have access to the platform, to the other dimension courses. Some of you who took the other dimension, some of the dimensions last year may or may not have access to those again, but inside the design studio, there will be all the documents for each module of each dimension. You can access them there. You won't be able to access perhaps the discussions that were held in the forums. But other than that, you should have all the information. So this comes up because, for example, in the team dynamics, you may find occasionally that you have some conflict in your team. It's totally normal. It's to be expected. When people work together, sometimes there are conflicts, maybe misunderstandings, maybe different timing for things. Please refer to the social dimension where you read about conflict resolution and try to use some of those techniques if you need to. Otherwise, we'll try to help as best that we can, but we don't have any magic formula for resolving conflicts for groups. I wish we did. We would have a much better world if that was the case.
But I think this is where we suggest the opening circle for each meeting. And apologies for the spelling mistake in number 11. That should be closing circle at the end of the meeting. And you'll find that if you do start having these type of small rituals, the team dynamics will be pretty fluid and everyone should start getting on with each other. But as Gio was saying, if there are areas of conflict, then please don't sit back and do nothing. Just get in touch with Gio and myself, and we will try and assist wherever possible.
Yes, Keith, go ahead. I can't see everybody, but if you raise your hand, I may be able to call your name if you have a question.
This question pertains to our project, but I think it may pertain to others, perhaps most of them. In the text of the workbook, there's frequent reference to stakeholders and real world participants. They're not members of our design team, but how much should we interact with them? Because we can create, for example, a theoretical plan for that site. This may or may not be what those people who own the site want. We're trying to do our best to cover these 4 dimensions. But in our first visit to the site, we also tried to ask, what do they want? How do they see it? And so it's a question of when we have real world people to deal with, how directly should we interact with them?
I can help with that, Keith. I think treat the campsite owners as your client, and Gaia Education as your funder. So we are the overall client, and the campsite owners are a project that that's your beneficiary, and you guys are the design team that provide your services. So in consulting them, you would need to dredge out from them what are their expectations. Obviously, you've got a mandate to not go too far within the case study, but you can take it as far as concept and then clearly outline the next steps towards a detailed design. That is normally done in a feasibility study anyway. But the broader stakeholders that you ought to, if not consult, at least think about and do some online research, is that if you submit a formal proposal for how this campsite could be refined or reinvented, are there any planning bylaws that are triggered, any environmental approvals that you think may be triggered? So if there is someone in the area there, it might be worthwhile going to pay a visit to the local municipality and just sound them out on this. Especially if you've got something that's already looking quite nice in terms of a concept. You might find that the authorities start getting quite excited about it, and they will point you in the right direction as to what triggers to look for. And you could leave it at that, because then you outline as your way forward, these are the stakeholders to be engaged with formal approval, these are the documents to submit, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
If you can, but if you can't, maybe just online research on what the authorities expect may be sufficient.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Good question, Keith. I wonder if anybody else has a question. You can raise your hand. I'll try to find you. Or you can type it in the chat box. Okay, well, doesn't look like any burning questions at this moment. I'm sure you will have some as you go along.
Gio, I'm going to circulate the suggested agenda for the kickoff meeting in the email notice. I'll post it on the discussion group, and then encourage the teams to interact with each other and set up their first meetings. I did say in the manual, in the guidebook, that I would like to attend at least the first 1 or 2 meetings, but maybe I'll hang back for the kickoff meeting. I'll let the team members themselves get on with that, and then definitely start tuning in for the first or second team meeting, and then any other meeting that's required after that. Just Great. As an observer, not to interfere with your creative juices that are flowing, but just to make sure that things are on track and they're proceeding smoothly.
And I would like to suggest that you try to set this kickoff meeting this week, if possible. You're going to find that even though we extended the course to 12 weeks, 12 weeks is actually something that flies very quickly by. So I want to just really emphasize to carve out some time in your schedule to dedicate to this project if you want to do it on time. A lot of what we're trying to do here is also practice what we're going to face in real life, which is deadlines. You have a client at the end expecting you to produce progress reports and things like, exactly like what you're going to find in this course. Now, you may have more than 12 weeks for those projects, but this is a practice project, so we want to try to limit it to this 12 weeks. All that to say, again, try to kick off your first meeting this week, if possible.
There was a question there from Eddie. The second live session that we've advertised on the 1st of August, I think we've covered a lot more than what we anticipated with the team allocations. So that was as a precaution in case we hadn't got any feedback and we were still presenting possible teams at this stage. But I think we're quite far down that road. So we'll reschedule the second live session to probably next week or the week after that. We'll put it up on the notice board.
Yeah. Okay. So there'll be a little bit of a revision to what you'll see in the classroom, and this may happen as we go along because some of this material is being revised as we visit it. Not much, but I just want to give you a heads up that do look at especially the timeline. There will be adjustments made. Okay. Well, unless we have anybody else needing to clarify anything, this was the beginning. Ready to launch. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Gio and Isabel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All this, of course, this presentation will be posted as a PDF, and we will also post the recording if you'd like to visit it again. But you got all the information you need to start. Take care, everybody. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
All right.
Bye.